just so you know. And then... Oh! I love Liz. Oh my God, yeah. I'm gonna move somehow. Let's reconfigure here. Oh God. Awkward. Hello, everybody. I'm Ann Pirvu.
And I'm Melissa Melottey. And welcome to Tea Time
with Ann and Mel. Now, the talk show on nurturing relationships and becoming self-aware.
So brew your favorite tea and let's jump right into it.
Because today we are talking all about relationships and, more importantly, how you know if you are ready for a relationship. I actually found this a really interesting topic, first and foremost. And before I pick your brain on why we chose this, my gorgeous Melissa, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and welcome them all to a brand new season. You know, for our returning fans and friends, it means that we just have a brand new look and we have 10 very specific episodes that are going to play out over the next, 10 weeks, basically.
Yeah.
And really interesting topics for each one. So,
yeah. Instead of kind of being the spontaneous sort of crew that we've been for a while, we actually planned out all 10 episodes. We have it all sort of scheduled. We have a new face. I hope you like our border. It's beautiful. We have new glasses, a new hat. Not really new for me. Are the glasses new? Those are cute.
When you said we have a new face, it was just too hard to resist, you know, like, hello.
Hello.
The love glasses for our love talk show. It is honestly such a joy to be able to do this with you every week. And it's just going to be so much fun. By the way, we have the ability right now to show you live for anyone that's commenting in. We're going to pop them up on screen. It's actually really exciting. I didn't know that that was a thing. Oh, look.
So cool.
We are simulcasting on twitch.tv/thepepmag. And just to give you an idea of what that little pop-up would look like, that's what just popped up on our Twitch stream. And so when you ask a question and you send a comment, that's what it looks like. I'm just fascinated. I think it's so cool. I love it.
This is so great, Anne, because remember when we were using Live Me like 2 weeks ago and we lost the comment that we wanted to focus on? Like we'll be reading comments and then we'll lose it because there'll be too many and then we can't go back because it erases it. So at least now when we're focusing on a comment, we can put it up on the board and highlight it and, you know, never lose track of our thoughts.
You know, who thought that was a good idea? Because sometimes, you know, some of the things that come out of my mouth, they could just take a hike. But truly, we have an awesome show for you guys today. And not only that, but we actually asked this question ahead of time. So we have some responses from some of our awesome fans.
Do we? Look at how many responses we got.
Oh, I love it. I got a whole lot too. But before we even dive into this, so as we prepared for our new season, both Melissa and I just kind of threw in a couple of ideas. And I actually thought this was an amazing idea. And humbly, it was not mine. And I want to know the inspiration behind this question, you know, because I find it a fascinating question to ask yourself. How do I know if I'm ready for a relationship, right? Like, I think that we should ask it. I think that a lot of people ask it. And a lot of people ask it for a lot of different reasons. You know what I mean? So curious to see what the inspiration for you was to think of this idea, my love.
Yeah. So basically I was just reflecting on my previous relationships and I realized that I definitely was not ready to have been in a relationship when I was in those relationships. And so, you know, people say around like 18, 19, like that's a good age to start dating. I mean, parents would prefer that, but obviously kids sometimes will start dating at like 14 or whatever, you know, it's like,
they prefer that.
Yeah, they would prefer it. But across the board, obviously everyone's life experience is different. But personally, me, so because of the way that my childhood panned out, I developed specific beliefs in my childhood around relationships. And I just need to point out that this is no one's fault. As humans, when we're children, we develop belief systems that will help our lives sort of pan out, right? And we develop blocks, and then I think kind of our purpose of being human is figuring out how to, heal those blocks, and then more blocks will pop up, and we got to heal them, and so on and so forth. So I think that like I had a lot of issues in regards to how I saw relationships because of my childhood. And it's not till you get, and I'm going to say, it's not till I got to be maybe 25, 26, did I really start to realize how much crap had developed from my childhood that I never actually healed. And, and had I realized that, I might not have had the experiences that I had. And regardless, it's okay to have bad experiences because that's how you learn, whatever. But I do feel that, there's something to dating a little bit older, even if that's not the norm, and most people date when they're younger. I think if you can date when you're older and you can figure out what you want, and you can sort of try to heal any subconscious blocks or whatnot through, I mean, if they're subconscious, you wouldn't know. But if you could try to heal all your stuff before getting into a relationship, that can really help you attract healthier relationships into your life. So I just think that, yeah. So I was just thinking about my past, and personally, I was not ready to be in a relationship because I hadn't healed any of my daddy issues. A lot of us that come from divorced families, like they do have them. Females a lot of these days struggle with daddy issues and even mommy issues. My mom and I have come a long way, and we're super super close and loving now, and we hang out all the time. But I had to heal a lot of that stuff before I started attracting better, healthier relationships. And now the one that I'm in is quite healthy and quite awesome, to be frank. So
right.
Yeah, so that was the inspiration behind it.
Oh, I love it. I honestly love it. And there's so many notes I was taking as you were talking. The idea of mommy and daddy issues, hilarious. I very much enjoyed your chat about the imprint period, about, this body of knowledge that we absorb as youngsters in like the first 7 years of our lives, that we're not even aware that we're absorbing this set of beliefs and rules and ideas of how to live life, and we're oftentimes unaware again that's even happening. So it becomes us in a sense, and we carry all this baggage, right, that we somehow until we make an effort to be attuned to it and to be aware of it in our day-to-day life, and how it affects the choices that we make, because it does. Our belief systems 100% affect the choices that we make in life, right? And the types of relationships that we attract and how we interact with one another, So thanks for pointing that out. I find that alone valuable, just talking about that fact. I took a psychology class a couple of weeks ago just for fun at home, and they talked all about this imprint period and how important it is to be aware that it does happen, that there are things that you just pick up along the way that continue to affect you. And to this day, I still have, ideas that I'm just now understanding how they've affected the choices that I've made over time, Yeah. The point is that there's nothing wrong with you when you realize that. Like, no. Everybody goes through it, and at the end of the day, what fascinated me about this question is that my first initial answer was like, of course, I think that the only way to learn whether something's good for you or not is by doing it.
Yeah.
Right? So you can theorize and like have a like, oh my gosh, should I, shouldn't I, should I, well, but like until you do it, until you throw yourself out there and test it out, right? Which by the way is also potentially a painful process, right? You don't want to just be throwing your heart out there, to see what happens to it. At least I don't. I don't enjoy that process. But it's the only way.
But hey, had you not done it though, you wouldn't be where you are right now. You wouldn't have learned all the lessons that you've learned right now, right?
This is very important to say. Yeah. And I find so much value in that. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that a lot of people ask themselves that question. And also, like, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on when at the moment in time that you're asking a question like that of yourself, what do you think your mindset could be? You know, so
Oh.
what are the, let's go through the different scenarios of like, let's say you've never dated before, right? Let's say you're like 16, 15, 16, you've never had like a significant romantic relationship in your life, hopefully.
Mhm.
I mean, some people, hey man, to each their own.
I know actually at like 17, 18, I had a really serious one that was out of control. But
Oh, wait a minute. I just want to show one thing. Heyo, Emery's Diaries in the house. She goes, the new design is yummy. Thanks, gorgeous.
awesome.
Mwah.
I love
Love you, and thanks for being here.
Love it.
Who else is, oh no, that was my response. Excellent. That was my response to it. I was like, who else is commenting here? Oh, that's just my response. So let's say that you've never, ever been in a relationship, right? And
Yeah.
and you're asking that question. First of all, you know, in there, my first spidey sense goes, is there some kind of a self-esteem issue?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly it. And I was going to say that it's obviously like a person by person basis, right? Like every situation is going to be completely different. And I think this is where we go back to what we talk about always in terms of like tuning into our intuitive skills and what does our intuition and what are our souls saying to us personally? Does it feel right for me to date right now? Like, it's more that you have to ask that as opposed to, you know, sort of take on concepts and follow what other people say and what worked for them, because everything is going to be different for each person, right? But yeah, if you're asking that question, I think it does come a little bit from a fear place. And certainly there, when I asked myself that, when I was reflecting, I wasn't necessarily accepting my journey. I was thinking about like, oh, like I kind of wish that I could go back and tell myself to maybe not date because I had all these like blocks and things that I needed to work through. And like, but I wasn't really in the mindset or in the mind space to say to myself, oh, wait, had I not gone through them, I might not have learned them. I maybe might have, but it might not have been in the same way. And yeah, it's kind of just more of like, I would say that's more of fear talking as opposed to, you know, accepting as is and accepting what happened. And yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what, the other thing too is like, again, because my personal belief is that, you know, you just don't know
Yeah.
until you try, right? There's nothing wrong with just literally putting yourself out there. Now, I know we've talked about this before, you and I, but for anyone just tuning in right now, I'm weird. Hi, I'm weird. I'm Anne.
Weird, Anne.
I never went through a phase where, when it comes to relationships, I was like, oh, I'm just curious, you know, like I just want to throw myself out there and see what lands. I have single-handedly my entire life been singularly focused. Like I've dated a very small, tight, significant amount of people, very deliberately and usually long term. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a short-term investor, and I don't know how to do that. I somehow wonder, sometimes I wondered, like, you know, did this skip a generation? Did this gene like completely skip me as a person? Because I never even found the fun in that, you know, like I zero in on people that interest me, and that's it. And I have no time for anything else most of the time, right? But as life went on, you know, this kind of black and white mentality is not the easiest thing to navigate either, right? It's like there's some periods of time that I was incredibly lonely because of that, you know, and by choice, just completely single for long periods for a long, you know, not that the opportunity wasn't there. It's just that the type of human that I am is just very deliberately interested in a person, right? Like, and I've always known that. Weird. I'm telling you, weird.
I don't think that that's very weird. because I would only want to be with someone that I wanted to be in a relationship with. Like I never really wanted to like date around. That was never me either. So if you're weird, I'm weird. But Anne, just to point out though, for anyone who doesn't know Anne very well, and I feel like a lot of you that are probably watching have seen our previous streams, but Anne has a family that, you know, is pretty stable. Like your parents are together, they've been together your whole life. And so you witnessed a healthy relationship. You witnessed two people choosing to grow together and committing themselves to each other. And so no wonder you would have such a healthy perspective on relationships because you had that experience, right? So
yeah, and also, you know, like honestly, I never really questioned. As I get older, I question this notion of what a healthy relationship is, right? As I was living life and going around my merry way, I literally just went after. This sounds really intense. I pursued relationships. I invested myself in relationships that I found merit in, and it wasn't a question of am I ready to date or not. Do you know what I mean? I just found interesting people and invested myself in them in that way, you know? And and so that's why this particular question fascinated me, because it's a very self-aware question, and this is what we talk about here on our talk show all the time, you know, nurturing relationships and being self-aware. And as I get older, you know, it's important to ask this question. You can't just like, you know, even though I think that most of us kind of instinctually decide whether we want to be a part of a relationship or not, right? Instead of making it a big like, oh, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, you know, constantly. I think that when somebody that grabs your attention comes along, you know it, right? Like there's that intuitive part of us, there's that spiritual side of us that is ever active in detecting what's of our heart and what's not. Now, the question that I found fascinating for myself, you know, this idea that like at different phases in life, you're attracting precisely what you're ready for, right? So it's not a question of whether you're attracting at different times or not. You're always attracting, right? It's a question of where you are, just like Melissa was saying, in your personal journey of understanding what you're looking for in a relationship. And those are very different things, right? And that can vary significantly, you know, at different phases in life.
Yes. No, completely. I completely agree. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, even the question, should I date right now? Am I ready to date right now? I mean, yeah, like Anne said, at different stages, you'll be ready for different things, and at different stages of your life you will have already healed certain parts, and you'll be ready for another part of you to be healed, and you'll attract something in your life that'll help you heal that. At least that's what I believe. Do you believe that, Anne, that we attract what we need to heal?
Absolutely. And even more than that, you know, like sometimes you attract at the level where you're at spiritually, right? So whether that means you're looking for something insignificant, you're just looking to have fun, you attract at that level. If you are looking to sometimes be more stable and be able to focus on other things other than a relationship, so if stability and security is your focus, then you attract a long-term relationship, right? But at the level that you're at your maturity level, you know, again, it's thinking about things as needing to heal them in a sense, even though this is true, kind of pinpoints that there might be an issue with you that you need to worry about, you know, like that there are things that you need to heal. Having said that, when I was, you know, 17 years old and met my very first love, right? That was a very long-term relationship. I wasn't hurting. I was just enjoying discovering new things about myself, about the relationship, about what it means to be a partner, about what it means to be in a marriage, right? Like things like that, long-term. And then, you know, when life changes for you, then you're asking yourself different questions, you know, and then you're learning more. So it, you know, I went through a 4-year period, for example, where I felt like I was blowing in the wind later on in my life, you know, where you attract different types of partners based on, things that you got to heal and things that new realizations that you've made, you know, through relationships. And that was a very, you know, ongoing educational process, right? And it's nice when you can feel safe enough with people. Again, like let's say you go through a major breakup, you have a, you know, very early on, like myself, you know, a very significant relationship, you go through a huge breakup and you don't even realize sometimes moving forward, right? Like there are certain habits and beliefs and things that need to change in order for you to be free and open again.
Totally.
As a human being, you know? So
yeah. So maybe, sorry, go ahead.
No. You.
So maybe the question should be not, should I date right now? Or maybe the question should be, am I ready to date right now? Because then it makes it more directed towards yourself so that you tune in and listen to yourself. Does that make sense? Like, am I ready? Maybe what you should be asking yourself is, am I ready to date right now? Yeah, sure. Okay, then go for it. Maybe not. Okay, then no, you know, and maybe it's as simple as that.
Totally. And it's funny because for me, you know, like that, I think the reason I never asked myself that question is because I was always so deliberate with my choices that if there was nobody that interested me in that significant way where I felt a connection, like a deep connection, I didn't even date. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I didn't even do it. Like I literally just didn't. But that's me. I feel like, you know, in our society today, it's so lovely to talk about this because, you know, the newer generations, right? Like, I don't know, the divorce rate is what right now? Like over 50%, right? In today's day and age, the chances of you having a long lasting relationship aren't that high. Like they're not. And it's not because we don't want them to be necessarily long term. It's because of life circumstances and the pace of life and situationally, you know, career wise, what we involve ourselves with and how we think about family and relationships in today's day and age because of that. You know, like that's sort of what I'm thinking. I have a bit of a dual brain. I have, you know, honestly, it's weird, but like I have a North American, I think of myself as a North American brain and a European heart. Because I lived my life in Europe, you know, and so the first like 7 years of my life, the first 12 years of my life were in Europe, where I learned very strong family bonds and the importance of, you know, teamwork and just love, just pure freaking love. And then I came to North America and I learned, you know, diversity and business and career and, you know, all these things like opportunity, right? Like, I grew up, I lived the second half of my life basically in Canada in that way. So my brain is always like family first and foremost, right? Like family, love, relationships first.
Right.
That's my heart. That's how I grew up. That's just me. And then I also know that these other things are equally as important for you to be a fulfilled, satisfied, effective, you know, member of society in a sense, right? And I've always been very viscerally aware of the need for balance between those two because I do my very best work when I'm in a supportive, loving, nurturing relationship.
Right. So I wonder. Oh, sorry. You know what? I think the connection might be a little bit off. That's why I keep cutting you off. I apologize because it shows like a pause and then it speeds up. Okay. What I was going to say is, you know, I wonder if it's because you had. Let's go back to your family and how, like, you know, they've been together for a long time. They're committed. They're, you know, you've seen a healthy relationship, that maybe that has contributed towards you knowing what you want. Because if you didn't have that experience, you wouldn't know what to want. Does that make sense? Like you wouldn't know how to visual. So when I hear you tell your story about how you just always like would find people and you would commit to them right away. And you knew that was like the person that you wanted to give your all to. I can't say that I definitely had the same experience because literally, this is crazy. I was having this conversation with my boyfriend like not too long ago about how, and it's wild, but every relationship or guy that I like gave a little bit of myself to, I totally thought we were going to be in a relationship and it was going to be long term. And that's like wild me looking back on that because so clearly like some of the guys, like I was just like, you know, just like a side thing for sure. And But I didn't know that, and I didn't realize that because I had never witnessed what healthy relationships are like. I didn't know how a guy should treat me. I didn't witness a father figure necessarily treat my mother in a way that you would in a healthy relationship, and then vice versa, mother treating so like because of that, I think I was drawn towards guys that didn't necessarily treat me well. They actually didn't treat me well. And I need to just own that. And the fact that they didn't for the most part. I had a couple of them. I had one 4-year relationship and he was quite great. But besides that, most didn't. And I think it's because I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. So
I love that you said that. And honestly, I think it's so powerful to know that and to share that, period. And anyone watching here, where you come from and how you live the first part of your life. And this imprint period does have such a significant effect on what you look for and what you attract in any relationship, how you treat people, how you express yourself, how you communicate, all of it. It affects all of it, right? And yet so often we're not even aware of that, And so I think that, being a little immigrant kid for me made me grow up really fast. I honestly needed to know what the heck I wanted so that, there was so many other things to do.
Yeah.
I have never allowed myself, a different type of mentality because it wasn't useful to me. I just needed to make definitive decisions, move on. And if there's an issue, a bump along the way, you fix it, and you fix it as you go. I literally never sat down and was like, what do I do? How do I live life? Anybody out there that's a little immigrant kid will probably understand this. And it is a very, it's a very transformative thing to move at a very transformative time in your life. 12 years old is when you're first starting to understand that you have an impact in the world, that you're an individual and you've got a say and you've got things to say and things you want to do. And so at that time, I literally became uprooted into a new life, and I started a new life. And again, as you're doing it, you're not thinking about it, right? You're just going, and then you realize how things fall through the cracks and affect you and whatever. But having said that, I totally feel super, super lucky, to have never had to worry about having a supportive role model in my life, having love in my life and witnessing what love and unconditional love is, and I know that one of our episodes is going to talk about this. I'm so excited for it in our new season, unconditional, the definition of unconditional. But, yes, to have that example very early on made a huge difference in my life. But even so, right, I feel like you and I and anybody that I speak to, all of my friends, I Benjamin Buttoned. I went backwards in my understanding of relationships because of that. And so that's why for the longest time I felt very alone and alienated in that sense, right? Because I was like,
well, yeah, because most people are children of divorce nowadays and don't know what healthy relationships are anymore. You're the abnormal now, which would have been so normal in our grandparents' day and age.
Yeah.
Wild.
And it was hard, to be honest with you. It was hard and it was hurtful for a very long time, after coming out of a long relationship. So I knew what nurturing, committed, loving was, and then it changed. And then it takes you time to find that new normal. And that process alone, which took many, many years, has taught me so much about life, about people, about, I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it was not easy. That's for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. It was not easy. Look at this. We have a comment coming in from Marie's diary. I'm about to show it. Ready? This is going to be so fun. Boom.
Oh.
She says, there is no age to start dating someone. Society created this rule and made people believe that if they still hadn't dated anyone after a certain age, they wouldn't fit into our society. That's why a lot of people start dating someone, even if they aren't ready yet. At the end of the day, the relationship isn't a true one because it's based on pressure our society created, and we date someone because we want to fit into our world.
Totally. Definitely. You know what? I was just having a conversation with one of my friends who, she's, same age as me, and she's never dated before. And she feels all this pressure of, and all these guilty feelings that she's behind in life because she's 30 years old and haven't dated. And you know what? that's just society. You date when you're ready and when the time is right, and that's all that matters. You know, there shouldn't ever be an age range for having to do anything. Like I'm turning 30 this month and everyone's like, "Oh, you're turning 30. Like, are you preparing to have kids and get married and, you know, do all the the stereotypical 30-year-old things?" It's like, no, I will do it all in my own time. So yeah, I love that you said that, Emery's Diaries. That is, it's so true. Yeah. I think she has one more comment, Anne. Dating someone is complex.
The other part of it.
Dating someone is complex, and we shouldn't date anyone if we don't feel ready yet. And there's no shame in being single. Yeah, girl. Exactly.
There is an awesome quote that I want to share with you guys. God, I take way too many notes, and I've taken so many amazing courses lately. So I'm like, whoa.
Oh, Lucy, welcome. And she commented too, so we'll read that one afterwards.
Hi, Lucy. There's this amazing author and relationship coach, Catherine Woodward Howard, and she created this notion that you can break up with kindness. She called it conscious uncoupling. You hear the latest news, you know, out of Hollywood right now, they're all consciously uncoupling instead of just divorcing, right? Because
all those celebrities, good on them.
Yeah, I love it. I honestly love it. I listened to her talk and I found it brilliant. And one thing that she talked about is part of her story. You know, she was 42 years old and she wanted so badly to be in a nurturing relationship, but also, just like many of us, you know, in life, she grew up with this notion that she just was going to be alone. Like, you know, so every relationship therefore in life, she kept pushing away. So she's 42. She wanted a nurturing relationship. She wanted a baby, and she figured out a way to manifest that. But unfortunately, it made her rich. It made her entire, you know, she was like, how to, you know, she wrote a book on it, yada, 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 and built an entire business around how to attract into your life at whatever time what you need. Then it fell apart 10 years later. And she was at a crossroads. And she realized, you know, she's in her 50s. She had her kid, very happy. But she was like, I want to break up with kindness, you know, and that's where conscious uncoupling came from, that realization, you know. And also, who am I that I can't, you know, I'm setting up and all these other people, and I am a relationship counselor and a therapist, and I'm helping all these other people find happiness in relationships, and I can't do that for myself. That was basically the crossroads that she was saying. And she looked back to this happily ever after myth that was created in Venice in the 1600s, basically. So roughly 400 years ago, right? This notion that, you know, you're going to find your Prince Charming, you're going to live happily ever after, is kind of this romanticized Italian version of a, you know, a romance should be, you know, the coupling of two souls becoming one forever, right? And when you think about it, what she pointed out was this was a quote that I wanted to tell you. Cultural constructs come out of the life conditions of the day. Cultural constructs come out of the life conditions of the day. Yet we still live by this happily ever after myth, is what she called it, like in the 21st century, even though 400 years ago, think about this. If cultural constructs come out of the life conditions of the day, 400 years ago, people only lived until they were 40. People, you know, there was this notion, religion was a huge, huge deal, right? So they got married first, had their kids, and died within 20 years, okay? So you're not spending more than, happily ever after is about 20 years with one partner, realistically speaking, at that time, right? So when you take concepts and ideas that are so romantic and so resonant over time, right? Whether they be in musical form, whether they be in, you know, books and whatever, however we consume societal norms, like Emery's Diary was telling us, they're still a part of our life. But what we need to do, and she makes it very clear, is disassociate from the things that no longer apply to our current life conditions, right?
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
So like nowadays, what do we do? First of all, you and I are actresses, okay? I don't have a 9 to 5. I have very rarely had a 9 to 5. And so I make my own schedule, right? Which is difficult for some people that don't understand that lifestyle to even wrap their heads around, right? Again, the conditions of our life have evolved so much. Look at what we're doing right now, guys. We are in quarantine having a full-on talk show out of our living rooms. You know what I mean? Like, this is definitely something that, yes, is very complex, but it's very new to how we live life. We are literally interacting with each other online throughout this entire 4 months, whatever the heck it's going to be by the end of this quarantine period, right? So it's very valuable for us to be aware of. And it honestly, when she said that, I was like, oh, it's huge, right? Yeah. Like, it is, when things don't work out, like with me, for example, you know, like a marriage, like when things don't work out and it seems like the end of the world, what you need to understand is there's a reason why we have for example, 53% or whatever the percentage is divorce rate nowadays, right? And it has to do with the way that we live life. So we can't hold ourselves hostage or accountable or judge, you know, the way that we adjust to these new conditions, in a sense, holding ourselves accountable to things that were, you know, in essence, important 400 years ago, right?
Totally. That is such a cool quote. I'm going to get you to send me that afterwards. Actually, we should make you should put that quote on the Instagram page. Like, let's like post that. Yeah. That's a great quote to just like keep up. But I wonder, you know, side note though, side thought, I wonder how much of that stat is actually real, because just think about like how many people are actually getting married anymore. Like, that stat would seem a little bit more valid if people were still getting married as much as they were, you know, however many years. Cause like, if they're not getting married, then they're, you know, not going to be able to get divorced. Right. So I just wonder how many people are staying together that aren't married. Like, I wish they could measure that somehow.
No, that's so true. And I also feel like we might be a part of that. You know, we can make up our own poll and do some digging and investigating of our own, you know, because this concept, relationships themselves, you know, fascinate me, and I know they fascinate you, and we talk about them all the time. So sometimes I feel like this is, you know, we're entering a new age, literally, in our world, where the way that we interact with each other is transforming, the way that we consume everything that's around us, including media, is transforming. The way that we communicate is transforming, right? So just being aware of the fact that life circumstances are going to affect, you know, your actions and your needs and your wants going forward, I think is an incredibly healing, calming concept worth practicing thinking about on a daily basis. Totally. You know, for anybody. Because the other truth in life is that knowledge is not enough. Awareness is not enough. You have to build awareness into your lifestyle through habit, you know? And I did this topic of like creating healthy habits on Soul Sunday a few weeks ago. And it just made me think just how freaking valuable it is just to understand, especially at a time like this, when we're all in our homes, right? And the future is uncertain, to say the least. And we're going day by day, figuring it out, you know, creating healthy habits and a framework and a structure of security and safety for ourselves is more important than ever. You know, human beings are creatures of habit. Like, we want to know what we can depend on, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You want to know what's stable, and then you want to build upon that. Otherwise, you're just spinning, you know, or like not okay in that sense, right? So I think it's like to even start asking this question of yourself, should I be dating right now, is actually more interesting now in than ever, you know, like, because there are no, and the truth is you have to answer it for yourself based on what your personal needs and wants are, which is why self-awareness is key, you know, and practicing self-awareness is key, because if you don't even know what you want, that's when you open yourself up to a lot of heartache. Again, nothing wrong with that, because you learn through experience, right? So no experience is wasted. Everything is knowledge. Everything is important, you know? But my personal philosophy in life is the least amount of suffering that you can bring upon yourself, the better. Like, why be shattered and destroyed. And you know that saying, I have to hit rock bottom before I do anything different? Like, I've been there, friends. I've hit rock bottom. It fucking sucks. Sorry. You know, you don't have to hit rock bottom before you make a change in your life or before you shift gears, right? So, I don't know. Like my whole philosophy in life is to just, with kindness and understanding and communication and using our Gemini communication skills, because both Melissa and I are Geminis, you know, help alleviate the suffering. And a lot of times you refer to that as healing, because it is healing. But the truth is, you know, if you don't hurt in the first place as much, you don't have to heal as much either, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm curious as to, I don't know if you've heard this, but there's been a lot of people joking about like all the people that are going to split up after the quarantine is over, and how people are like biting each other's heads off and whatever. And honestly, I would be very curious to actually see what happens, because so when I was taking the course at U of T, I was taking a course called the Psychology of Relationships, and one of the things that I took home that I found really interesting is we were talking about how to sort of replenish a relationship after you've been together for a while. And one of the things that the teacher had highly suggested is doing something that is highly emotional that will bond you to. And so she would give examples, like there's people that are what's it called, energy junkies, like, or thrill junkies, and they'll go and they'll, you know, jump off of planes together or whatever, and that will bond them because there's so much energy in that situation. Or unfortunately, sometimes people get bonded after, if they experience a loss together, that will bond them together, and that's what will keep them together. And so she highly suggested that you find a way to connect over something highly emotional. And so I was thinking about this situation and the fact that like you're bonded with someone over like all the fear that came up with this, and you know, just like sharing so many months together in the same house. Yeah. Like just sharing those memories, like you're fully bonded with that person for, you know, a while, or if not always, for that reason. So I'd be curious to see if that actually does happen, or if people will leave with like a higher appreciation for their relationship, or, you know, or if they'll, because I don't know, in my experience, to be honest, guys, I'm way more connected with my partner since this started. Honestly, like we've been really like painting together and like hanging out, and like, but then when we need our space, we're given our space. So I don't know. Curious though. I wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that, you know, that answer will be very individual for, you know, it'll be on a case by case basis, obviously. But, you know, I think the deeper question is when you have time. So when you spend time with someone, there's either going to be core commonalities that are going to unite you. So there's going to be, you know, values and things that you love doing together, watching things together, interacting with each other, jokes that you find hilarious together, whatever. Spending time together can bond you when you have commonalities, right? And so equally so, the only reason that I could see people splitting up from this would be if you figure out that core that bonded you before. So all the things that you found bonding before aren't actually bonding anymore, you know? And so that usually happens if you grow. You can grow together or you can grow apart.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
So I think that the only reason why you're going to get on each other's nerves during this time is when you realize that those commonalities that you thought existed don't actually exist. Or change, or you change, or they change. You know what I mean?
Or you realize that like maybe you never had the same values in common, and you were kind of bonded by like your sexual attraction to each other. Because I do think that happens a lot, and especially when you're younger, and that also ties to the question and the things that was thinking about, and the fact that like often like I was drawn to someone because I was like A, sexually attracted to them, or B, I liked something about them, but we didn't necessarily have the same values, goals, or identified our roles within the relationship, you know? So like those are the three core things you need to have in common in order to flow, you know, properly in a relationship. So yeah, I think
absolutely.
people will probably find that out.
It's so true. And look at this. I like Lucy's comment here. We have another really fun comment. Are you guys ready? It's going to be popping up right now.
All right.
Lucy Len says, from Germany, my gorgeous girl, I wanted to add to the conversation, even though I'm like the wrong person to ask. I, however, think it's easier to realize when you're not ready for a relationship. Interesting. Like processing a traumatic experience, recovering from a bad breakup, or a general feeling of disconnection with yourself doesn't really sound like a good place to start. I feel like the ideal place to be in would be to be connected and self-aware, happy with who you are as a person, and being a whole person before someone
somehow.
Where is it? Are we still allowed to ask questions, or are we supposed to send them beforehand? No, of course you can ask questions, love. But yeah, I love this point. I think part of this got cut off, sadly. I was trying to figure out the last bit of it there, Lucy, for you. But I completely agree with you. And she brings up a very interesting point about, feeling good about yourself before jumping in and trying to assume responsibility for other people too. So here's the other thing that I find about relationships. The essence of being connected to someone else and caring about someone else is you inevitably taking on certain emotions, feelings, things that are important to that person that aren't necessarily important to you, right?
Sure.
Or wouldn't have affected you otherwise, but because you're in the vicinity of them are going to affect you, right?
Right.
So when you actually care about someone, whatever they're going through, their wants, their needs, even if different from your own, are going to affect you.
Right.
So having said that, right, when you're unhappy with yourself, you don't really have much love to give. And this has been a very painful and long lesson for me, and because in so many ways I was happy and whole, and I was assuming that all of my partners were happy and whole. I didn't even clock in most of the time that they might not be. And then there were other relationships. They might not feel like that about themselves. Does that make sense? They're not happy with themselves. They don't trust themselves. They're insecure about themselves, or career-wise, a lot of guys, it's so interesting. I've learned so much about the male and female psyche through this process, and in the male psyche, guys are innately hunter-gatherer doers, right? Like they want to execute, accomplish, feel like they have a plan and be able to do it themselves. You know what I mean? And that's very important. The effectiveness of that is very important to the male psyche, whereas the female psyche likes to feel safe, secure, and nurtured first, above and beyond everything else, right? Like those are pillars that matter very much to us. First, it's just instinctually those things pop up, in different degrees for different people, right? So it's almost like, through my journey, I at times realized that I had expanded and grown into a different understanding of priorities for myself that I needed. But I also learned to see when my partners weren't feeling happy, whole, and good about themselves, which I always assumed innocently, truly innocently and naively sometimes, that if you're going to be in a relationship with me, you are happy and whole and awesome, because that's why I love you, because you're awesome. So, why don't you see that? But I can't force you to see that. That's the ultimate truth, right? Like if somebody doesn't see that in themselves, no amount of love is going to change their perspective. Everyone sees the world through their own lens, right? So you can't, even though you're going to be affected by their energy and their attitudes, for sure, you can't change it. They have to change it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's how you grow together. And I believe that you can grow together. That's what I've always wanted. But again, you need to find a partner that, if you want to be in a long-term relationship, is of the same mindset, has the same type of belief that this is a priority and should happen.
And there's specific questions that you can ask at the beginning of your relationship that can help you identify that you have those things in common. And you can identify whether there's someone that really loves himself, or they're maybe struggling with their self-esteem. And if you don't, that's okay, but you'll probably see it pan out throughout the relationship. Like maybe they'll have trust issues, or maybe, you know, that like it'll eventually unfold. So, you know, if you are someone that's quite content with who you are, and you're quite happy and whole, then you might want to dedicate your time to someone who also is that way, so you can both experience life in a more of a whole space, as opposed to one person being broken and the other person giving a lot of energy to help them fix themselves. But
totally,
you can't. You know,
it's so true. But honestly, like I said, I didn't even anticipate early on that, you know, I don't ever see problems. And that's been a problem for me personally in the past. Like, I don't see someone as having a problem or issues or whatever. I just don't see those things. I see the best in people, you know? And the truth is, I've learned to balance that knowledge. It's not going away. I'm not going to change my mind. You know, like, I see you for who you are, and I'm proud of that. But I've learned to give leeway and to give the respect for, you know, the person's authentic truth about themselves and perspective of themselves, and respect that. Because that's the only thing that we can truly like. And it's not easy, man. It's really not easy. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, this is my life's work. This is my life's growth, and my journey is to, and everything we talk about on Soul Sunday and everything I talk about as a human being is this love of diversity and contrast and difference, and celebrating the differences in each other. Because I think that's what makes us beautiful, right? Your uniqueness is, you know, the differences are the most beautiful and unique about you. That's what sets you apart. But it's really hard sometimes to see, you know, and I've been in different situations where your partner is suffering and there's literally nothing you can do about it. And they look perfectly fine on the outside, and you wouldn't even know that they're suffering, right? Like, this is why emotional intelligence and our instincts are so valuable to us, you know, being able to read people, body language, so valuable. And I find that very few people, in my humble opinion, use those spidey senses or value those spidey senses in life, you know? So conversations like this are so important, because becoming aware of that, you know, that other side of you, your instinctual side, is not something base and simple and stuff that you need to shove down and, like, you know, oh, I can't be that, you know, primal. I gotta be sophisticated and smart and whatever and worldly. Sure. The primal stuff is actually like the most valuable stuff that you have to offer anyone. Your energy is the highest level of currency. This is what I've learned in my personal life, you know, and your spidey senses are the biggest source of impact, and your highest level of currency that you can exchange within connection in any relationship, you know?
Yeah.
So
totally. I just wanna, because it is 3, we are, we didn't announce that we're only ever doing an hour from now on, but I probably 10 minutes, just we haven't read any of the comments or anything yet.
Cool. Let's read the comments.
Yeah, thinking if we could quickly read all the comments, and then I see that Lucy has a question, and then we can move. Yeah, just everybody. I'm sorry, I have an appointment at 3:30, but we did agree that we wanted to keep it within an hour anyway. Sometimes we go to like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and our intention is only really to do it for an hour. So, okay,
this is great. Okay, so we're gonna read some stuffs. Let's read your comments first. The comments that we have on your end over there. I'll read some on my end, and then we'll answer this question. I like this. Good producing, Melissa. Here we go.
All right, so we have Claire Manning. She says that I love this idea so much, I'm going to tune in. Awesome. If you're watching from like Facebook or something. Hi, Claire. Dog Trees and Tacos says, okay, so sorry, I should actually say that I asked, are there any signs that you are ready to be in a relationship? So that's more of the specificity that I asked. So this person says, when they feel comfortable speaking mostly to each other in Canada anyways. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So when you feel comfortable speaking to the significant other, then you might be ready to be in a relationship. Sure. Okay. Then we have Know the Gains. Says I'm gonna tune in. Cool. We have Joanna. She said, if you're not afraid of facing all the dating struggles, y'all know what I mean. Yes, go ahead. Perfect. Thank you, Joanna. She said, oh, also you're ready once you feel your heart is ready to slowly start opening itself up to someone. Exactly. That's exactly what we were talking about. I love it. M. Wong says, from a male point of view, knowing how to prioritize and convey responsibility for your own life is when you'll know that you're ready. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. You know what, though? It's
hunter-gatherer. Isn't that funny? Hunter-gatherer. That's exactly it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And you know what, though? I do think some males never feel like, I think this is a common like thought from males. They're like, oh, I have to like make sure that I'm responsible and I have my stuff together before I like commit to like settling down and whatnot. But like, honestly, I don't think you ever get there. I think life is going to keep throwing you challenges, and like you can want to feel completely stable all you want, but it's just, I don't think it's ever going to happen. My boyfriend is like this all the time. Like he has a really hard time with like committing to things. Like what in the past, it'd be so hard to book a trip with him because he'd go, well, I don't know if I'm available that week. And it's like, okay, you just need to like know that some things are out of your control and like and just go with it, you know, and like you realize that you won't be able to have everything together sometimes things are just going to fall apart. And then Just Let Christy said she loves our content, which is awesome. Thank you. And then Just Bring It KD says it just flows. You'll know when it just flows being friends, and then you think, yes, we can date. There you go. That's a good answer too.
I love that. That's awesome. So true.
Yeah.
I really particularly like this comment from Maird Scott with 3 T's. You will feel ready to settle with someone and create more memories. I think when you have learned to love yourself and lived some of your life for yourself. And I really loved that. In a sense, like I think it's so nice that you point out that, you know what, you got to live some life. So sometimes, you know, any relationship is valuable, and I hope that you truly believe that. And if anything, you know, whether you're ready or not, whether you think you're ready or not, everything is a lesson in a sense. Everything brings clarity, you know, so you don't have to be alone to learn anything before you can open yourself up to someone, right? And likewise, you have to be self-aware enough to not hurt other people with your actions, because I think that can also be psychologically damaging. You know, like when you do something and you hurt someone else, because innately in romantic relationships, whether you realize it or not, what you do affects the other person, right? So sometimes that person might be hurt by what you're doing temporarily, but you'll be the one suffering from the consequences of a certain something long term. I've been on the receiving end of that too, right? So responsibility goes both ways. So just know that any connection, investing yourself, that you invest yourself in, is going to have responsibility. You know, at least if you're a decent human being, you should know that there's responsibility in that, right? So do it, but just do it with kindness and self-awareness, you know. We don't need to hurt each other. Like, we really don't. And so many people just like, oh, you know, think something's a good idea. Then they change their mind, and then they just do it in such a like bull in a china shop way that it, you know, like it hurts. Like it has repercussions, you know, for either themselves or the other person. So just treat each other with kindness and respect, you know, and no matter what decision you make.
Yeah,
Shall we look at this question by Lucy?
Yes, let's do it. So basically, there's been a traumatic experience I've gone through 2 years ago, and it only sort of started hitting me now. Like I finally realized what it was and how bad it was, and it just honestly triggers the fear in me that I will never be able to be in a healthy relationship again. Again, proof of your talents, Melissa. Thank you. So how do you think I get rid of what is still haunting me? So, Anne, I'll just let you know, Lucy was a part of my stream with Gerota when I was using my intuitive guidance to like give people readings.
Oh,
And
amazing.
I didn't even realize it was her. And I gave her like a full on reading. And then she responded and said that I was spot on. So that was pretty cool.
Amazing. I love
Yeah.
that.
That's what she's talking about. And she said there. So how do you think I get rid of what is still haunting me? So, I mean, I guess I would first start with, because we don't really know the details. It's hard for me to fully say. I think maybe where I would start if I was you, I would probably start with meditation. And I know that's probably such like a basic thing to hear, but I feel like you'll know what to do. And like, I know you're coming to us for advice, and I would love to maybe Ann and I can like, speak with you privately if you really would like specific advice. Because this obviously sounds like it's a very hurtful situation for you. But I think that deep down, you know what the right thing to do is and what you need to do or what's right for you. Like you'll know if right now you're not ready for a relationship. And did you say that? Did she say that? I think she did. I'll ever never be able to be in a healthy relationship again. Yeah. And you know what? I think that it's totally possible. Whatever it is, I think, there's been people that I've known that unfortunately have experienced rape or they've experienced just horrible traumatic situations. And I've seen them now get to a place of working through their stuff and being able to be in healthy relationships. So I think it's totally possible. I think that, traumatic things take time to heal. That's, they're traumatic. And from someone that has gone through something traumatic in her life too, I can tell you it took me a while. It took me a lot of bad frogs before I found someone that's that's more of a prince that has helped me heal a lot of my stuff. So I would say to start with maybe meditating, just so you can like listen to yourself and maybe journal any thoughts that you have. And I would start there. But if you'd like specific advice or whatever, then maybe you can chat with us privately, and then we to better help you.
What stands out to me a lot is your self-awareness and your trigger, right? You even mentioned the word trigger, which is, that means you're on your way to healing already because you're aware of where you want to go and you're moving in that direction. And more importantly, when you speak out of fear, to me, that's a very positive place. Fear plus self-awareness equals the next step is forward motion. And like Melissa was saying, like this is going to take time, but there's no such thing as you will never be in a healthy relationship. That's fear talking. So I catch myself constantly in limiting beliefs and fears. And those are the things I want to conquer. And it starts with personally deciding, I see you, fear. I see you, barrier, limitation that exists at this moment. I know that you're only momentarily existing because I'm working on you and I'm on my way to where I'm going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is just temporary. This is not going to be something that you're going to be dealing with long term. This is something you're dealing with and you're moving beyond. And I love your advice, Melissa, of meditating. Like, I think you have to meditate anyway, just for your peace, just to get peace. Because the truth is, if you follow any of the law of attraction teachings, which I personally love, you don't have to right any wrongs. That's what Abraham Hicks teaches. And I love that idea, right? You don't have to go back and, take the rotten pipe and fix it. It's bad. It's not going to work anymore. Build new pipes. That's the advice. So, when fear is an indicator that this is something that you need to get rid of, to unshackle yourself from. It's very possible. And the way you do that is by opening yourself up to new experiences, new people, accepting yourself as new and moving in that direction. And it's a daily practice. Melissa and I coined this really cool phrase that I love. The saying, practice makes perfect. We say practice makes progress. Because it does. Because that's the truth. You know how we were saying, just knowing something and being self-aware is not half the battle. It's just the starting point. Then you decide, okay, now I'm going to change my lifestyle and, shatter these blockages that I have. And the only way you shatter them is by not paying them any mind, not being afraid of them anymore. Easing and softening that fear and replacing it with exciting, beautiful, hopeful potential, you know? And I don't think that has to come down the line, you know, like you can open yourself up to finding a nurturing relationship by just setting that intention. What you focus on, you create, right? So when I know that I was, you know, and I've been through frickin' traumas in my life, and when you're in a safe relationship, shit comes up that you don't even know was affecting you, right? Because you're now safe and you can start talking about it and healing some of that crap, right? And as soon as because now I'm in a good place and safe and I feel nurtured, I can start discovering these things that bubble up that I want to just let go of, you know? And fears are not something to be scared of. No, sorry. So for lack of a better word, it's just, you know, they're just indicators that you just got to let go of the fear. And it only happens through practice and time, I think, you know?
Yes, agreed, 100%. And you might not even be there yet. I think honestly, like if it's still quite fresh, you might not be ready to be so positive as of yet, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Like I think there's definitely steps to healing and working your way up the emotional guidance scale. And like, yeah, if you message me personally, like we could talk about the emotional guidance scale and I can tell you about that. And then, or, you know, like I think that this is I want to be able to give you more energy because I feel like I do have to go. So but I want you to know that like if you need someone to talk to, like I want to be able to help you, and I'm sure Anne will as well. So feel free to suggest.
Absolutely. But it was such a powerful thing to talk about, no matter what, you know, and put out there, because I'm sure you're not the only person that feels that way.
Yeah.
It's just been such a lovely, lovely, lovely conversation, girlfriend.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Where am I here? Well, guys, what am I going to do? This is another cool little feature that I wanted to experiment with. Wow, check this out. Boom. Chad, the little banner just changed, which means we're about 2 minutes away from ending our broadcast. We have a whole system here that's very high tech, you know what I mean? But both Melissa and I want to take a second and thank you so very much for being a part of our broadcast today.
Yes.
It means a lot to us.
It does. It's been super fun, man. This has been great. And it feels extra better with our new banner and our new look.
Absolutely. So we even have a little outro bit that we're going to do for you. Are you ready, Melissa? Should we do this?
Let's do it. Yep. Here we go.
Thank you, truly, 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 each and every single one of you for opening up and for giving us your thoughts and your ideas and sharing your stories with us. That honestly means the world to us.
That's not in the outro.
Nope, totally said that. Thank you so much for having tea with us today.
If you enjoyed this conversation, invite a friend to join in next week. We do this every Thursday afternoon at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, great to do. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment below. My beautiful friends, we actually invite all kinds of comments and feedback. This is something we're going to take very seriously this season. And we will see you next week, beautiful friends. Cheers, Melissa. Love you.
Love you guys. Mwah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.